Hi, I'm Barbara Rimkunis, and this is your Exeter History Minute. Exeter, like most of New England, has quite a number of cemeteries that date back to the early colonial period. There's a lot of scholarship out there that you can read, but here are some of the things you might want to look for in an old graveyard. First off, the word graveyard should mean a burial ground that's affiliated with a church. It's usually located right next to the church. A cemetery is a burial ground that's land set aside specifically for public use. A lot of families buried their dead on their own land, especially in Exeter, so there are small burials scattered all around town. Very early graves have disappeared because they weren't marked or documented. Families might put up a wooden marker or use plain field stones. Check out our History Minute on the grave of Susanna Holman Brown as an example of a family grave site that was almost lost. More formal burials began in the late 1600s. The stones you're likely to see from this period have a very distinctive look. Customs were brought from England and they follow a pattern. Sometimes the stones were hand-carved, but there were also professional gravestone cutters. The headstone could be quite large, and it provides a lot of information. The name of the deceased, as well as the age at death. Frequently it tells you the relationship of one person to another, which is helpful for genealogists. Women were almost always described in relation to a man. So daughter, wife, sister, you get the idea. A married woman might be described as a consort if her husband is still living, or a relict if she was a widow. We don't really use these words anymore, but they were once very common. The dead were buried between two stones, a headstone and a footstone. A lot of times you won't find the footstone. They're smaller and were easily knocked over or displaced with later burials. Headstones were usually facing west, and the footstone can be found behind it facing east. The deceased was buried between the two, which seems a bit odd today since now we bury the dead in front of the headstone. There are theories about this, but that maybe the deceased were facing the east when they would rise from the dead, but it might just be an ancient custom. The most interesting part of an old headstone is the symbolic art that's located in this part of the stone called the tympanum. The Puritans wouldn't put an image of an actual person on a stone. Instead, the art reflected their worldview. Life was temporary, death was eternal. What better symbol than a skull? It was a reminder that death was ever present, which is what it certainly was in a world with short lifespans and high child mortality rates. The wings were the hope of redemption. These are the oldest stones found in New England. As Puritan orthodoxy waned in the mid-1700s, the image softened from a skull to a cherub's face. This image disappears around the turn of the century, and most stones after that have images like weeping willow trees or a death urn and an hourglass. There's nothing wrong with visiting cemeteries and reading the stones. Gravestone rubbings, which used to be popular, are probably not a great idea since it can damage the stones. Besides, photography is much better now, so you may as well take a good picture. Late afternoon is best if you're trying to catch the light on the older west-facing stones. In any case, please don't use gravestones for decoration and treat cemeteries as if they were museums, not playgrounds, although one of our cemeteries is right next to a playground. Anyway, these were real people. Treat them with respect. Exeter's cemeteries are indexed. If you're looking for the grave site of an ancestor, check our website, www.exeterhistory.org. Go to the Resources tab, Links of Interest.